Hello. Welcome back to Module 4, the American Republic in Practice. Today, we will go over Section 5, Citizenship. In this video, you will learn the role of the citizen in the United States, the rights and responsibilities of citizenship, and the importance of voting and being an active citizen. Possessing citizenship in any country comes with rights and responsibilities, and the United States is no different. Alexis de Tocqueville observed in Democracy in America that a free society is dependent on an involved citizenry. This can take the form of voting, being active in the democratic process, and volunteering. First, let's cover what the Constitution says about voting, the most fundamental responsibility of any citizen. As we have seen, Article 1 grants the responsibility of overseeing federal elections to the states. But, the document does specifically define who may cast votes. Amendments to the Constitution, ratified from the 19th to the 20th centuries, has extended the right to vote over time. The 14th Amendment is one of the Reconstruction Amendments that constitutionally addresses issues decided on American Civil War battlefields. It tackles citizenship rights and equal protection under the law, and the first section forms the basis for the Supreme Court's 1954 decision in Brown v. Board of Education, which was mentioned in Section 2 of Module 4. That first section, known as the Citizenship Clause, grants both national and state citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States. The clause provides the constitutional underpinnings to the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which grants citizenship to all persons born in the U.S. The 15th Amendment is another Reconstruction Amendment and prohibits the denial of voting based on race. In simpler terms, the voting rights of African Americans were recognized. The 19th Amendment further prohibits the denial of voting based on sex. The culmination of a long suffrage movement, the amendment recognizes the voting rights of women. The 24th Amendment eliminated poll taxes, which had been used in some states to keep African Americans from voting in elections. The 26th Amendment prohibits the federal and state governments from denying the right to vote to citizens 18 years or older. The amendment lowered the national voting age from 21 to 18 in recognition of the fact that 18-year-old Americans who can be called into military service should also be allowed to participate in decision-making. Throughout the nation's history, the federal government has passed laws designed to ensure citizens can exercise their right to act. These include the Civil Rights Act of 1870, the Civil Rights Act of 1957, the Civil Rights Act of 1960, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the Voting Accessibility for the Elderly and Handicapped Act of 1984, the Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act of 1986, the National Voter Registration Act of 1993, the Help America Vote Act of 2002, and the Military and Overseas Voting Empowerment Act of 2009. We've covered a number of rights in this civic literacy series. These include your natural rights of life, liberty, and property. You also have a right to freely express yourself, worship or not as you wish, a prompt, fair trial by jury, vote in elections for public officials, apply for federal employment requiring U.S. citizenship, and run for elected office. However, with those rights comes responsibilities. As a citizen of the United States, you have the responsibility to support and uphold the Constitution and the laws of the United States, respect and obey federal, state, and local laws, defend the country if the need should arise, stay informed of the issues affecting your community, participate in your local community, participate in the democratic process through your vote, serve on a jury when called upon, respect the rights, beliefs, and opinions of others, and pay your taxes honestly and on time to federal, state, and local authorities. Indeed, people who complete the process of becoming naturalized American citizens swear an oath of allegiance to the country. I hereby declare, on oath, that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty, of whom or which I have heretofore been a subject or citizen, that I will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will bear arms on behalf of the United States when required by the law, that I will perform non-combatant service in the armed forces of the United States when required by the law, that I will perform work of national importance under civilian direction when required by the law, and that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, so help me God. We talked about the Electoral College in Section 2 of Module 4. As you may recall, Clauses 2, 3, and 4 of Article 1 of the Constitution define how the Electoral College elects the President. The Electoral College is a unique institution. First, you should understand that citizens do not directly vote for presidential and vice presidential candidates. Instead, their vote is used to guide a set of electors on how to vote during the meeting of the Electoral College. Each state decides how to assign electoral votes, but the normal procedure is to award them to the candidate who receives the majority of the statewide popular vote. In 48 states and the District of Columbia, presidential candidates must win all the electoral votes of that particular state to win the electoral votes. Maine and Nebraska assign their electoral votes using a proportional system at the congressional district level within those states. A candidate must win a majority of the Electoral College votes, which is 270 out of the 538 available votes. Each state and the District of Columbia have at least 3 electors, which is the minimum number of representatives and senators a state can possess. More populous states are allotted more electors. The number is determined by the quantity of congressional districts, which themselves are based on population, in a particular state plus the 2 senators. Even though the results are typically known in the hours and days following Election Day in November, the electors meet in December and formally cast votes for President and Vice President. Congress subsequently meets to count the votes, determines the next President and Vice President, and certifies the election. If no candidate receives a majority vote in the Electoral College, the election is then decided in the House of Representatives, where each state delegation receives 1 vote. A candidate must receive 26 votes, which is a majority of the states. This happened in 1800 when the House chose Thomas Jefferson, and in 1824 when John Quincy Adams was chosen. Candidates may win the popular vote but lose the election. This has happened in 1876, 1888, in 2000, and in 2016, although the results of the 1876 and 2000 elections were not entirely the responsibility of the Electoral College. Again, the president is not chosen by a national popular vote. Now, you're thinking this is a complicated system. Why don't we just use a national popular vote to decide? Actually, when you compare our system to the German variety, for instance, the Electoral College is a model of efficiency. The entire process was originally conceived as a compromise between a popular vote by citizens and a vote in Congress. The framers were conscious of the danger from a tyranny of the majority, which would marginalize substantial portions of the population. As designed, the purpose of the Electoral College is to balance the interests of small and large states, so that a small collection of highly populated and urbanized states do not dominate the presidency and dictate the direction of the country to everyone else. Suppose we used the popular vote in elections. Since all votes carry equal weight, candidates would likely shift their attention to the urban and suburban areas with the largest populations and ignore smaller communities. The most populous states would contribute the most votes and therefore have the greatest influence on the outcome. A logical question to ask is, are the viewpoints, values, needs, and interests of people in New York or California different than those in Georgia or Wyoming? Of course, they are. Additionally, to declare one more valid than the other and force the entire country to abide by those choices is tyranny of the majority. Instead, the Electoral College encourages wide-ranging coalition building and moderation. Candidates must appeal to a widespread cross-section of Americans in order to win the election. The college preserves the principle of federalism by recognizing the differences between each state while uniting the whole country behind one common national government and a president who can fairly represent them all. The college minimizes the risk of voter fraud by isolating the effect of stolen votes to one state's outcome rather than the national vote total. For all the college's complications, counting the 530 votes of electors is far simpler than counting the millions of popular votes. Recounting votes in a contested election would be far worse, particularly if the margin was extremely narrow. The college provides a platform for stable elections. With each state having its own procedure for administering elections, a result by national popular vote has the potential for chaotic recounts and even more strident accusations of suspicious activity. In the last few years, there have been calls to abolish the Electoral College. Some of the indicated issues include: the Electoral College has no mechanism for the faithless elector, in which an elector votes in opposition of their state's popular vote. 157 electors have done this, some for quirky reasons and others because they favored the losing party's candidate. Despite that the popular vote is never mentioned in the Constitution, a candidate losing the electoral vote but winning the popular vote may undermine the election's legitimacy in some people's eyes. Leaving the decision to the House may result in insider deal-making and unethical decisions. Citizenship means staying knowledgeable about the issues that affect your community and participating in the democratic process. This means researching issues, understanding different perspectives, and engaging in informed discussions. Staying conversant means you can make informed decisions in the voting booth, or ask intelligent questions of elected officials, or participate in other types of civic involvement. Naturally, volunteering is not mandatory, but it can be a crucial feature of active and involved citizenship. Indeed, volunteering is rooted in your First Amendment right to freely assemble. Tocqueville wrote that citizens need to develop the art of association. Indeed, he was astonished at how readily Americans formed organizations. Americans of all ages, all conditions, all minds constantly unite. Not only do they have commercial and industrial association in which all take part, but they also have 1,000 other kinds: religious, moral, grave, futile, very general and very particular, immense and very small. Americans use associations to give fêtes, to found seminaries, to build inns, to raise churches, to distribute books, to send missionaries to the Antipodes. In this manner they create hospitals, prisons, schools. Finally, if it is a question of bringing to light a truth or developing a sentiment with the support of a great example, they associate. Since the time in which Tocqueville wrote his book, service organizations have included the American Red Cross, the United Way, Habitat for Humanity, the Lions Club, the Rotary Club, the Kiwanis Club, the Optimist Club, Knights of Columbus, and the Salvation Army. These organizations and many more offer ways for private individuals to work with their neighbors and act as citizens. Social capital is defined by the Encyclopaedia Britannica as a concept in social science that involves the potential of individuals to secure benefits and invent solutions to problems through membership in social networks. Developing social capital teaches and encourages individuals and groups to work together, make decisions, exercise responsibility, and lead others. These are skills that can transfer to one's personal life. In conclusion, this brings the Civic Literacy video series to a close. Be sure to access the other video series produced by the Barton Library. Until then, thank you for your time. If you want to learn more about the subjects we have discussed, here are the sources used for this section.